You good?
Good now? All right. I told you this morning we're going to call Detective Greg Wolf. Detective Wolf, before you testify, would you be sworn in by the foreperson?
You just solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give.
I do.
State your name for the record, Detective Wolf.
Greg Wolf.
Where are you currently employed, Detective Wolf?
I'm employed with the Department of Criminal Investigations at the Office of the Attorney General.
And briefly, what kind of work do you do?
We do statewide investigations, public corruption, cyber investigations, and drug investigations throughout the state of Kentucky.
Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, how long have you been in law enforcement?
I've been in law enforcement 38 years, started in 1982.
Has that all been in the Commonwealth of Kentucky?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, you've been working with myself, Barbara, Reva, and Alex over the last several weeks assisting us in this investigation on this case. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
We're going to be talking about some forensics, some of the autopsy findings, things of that sort.
Yes, sir.
All right. Let's go first to the autopsy.
Yes, sir.
You had an opportunity to review those files before preparing for your testimony this morning?
I have.
All right. Can you approach, if you could, for a moment? What do we have back here? And it's exhibit, for the records, 64. What is 64? Where did that come from?
It come from the medical examiner's office. It's an outline of the injuries to the victim.
All right. And where does that come from?
From the Office of the Medical Examiner.
All right. And is that a typical wound chart, they call it, that is prepared by the medical examiner when they're examining a body to determine its cause of death?
Yes, sir, it is.
All right. And is this particular chart, does it relate to the injuries that were on or about the person of Breonna Taylor after the shooting?
Yes, sir.
All right. And let's go through them if we could, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. And let me get mine here. And you certainly are welcome if you want to use that to help you some. I think we have a beeper. Oh, here we go. No, one of those. We got it. All right, you got it?
Here, you want me?
Okay, thank you. Let me put the date on the record. It's September the 23rd, 2020. This is the Jefferson County Grand Jury, continuation of their all right. Have you got this little laser?
Yeah, you want it?
You go ahead and point. First of all, let's go to the top right, facing us.
Yes,
Can
sir.
you do that? All right. And by that I mean if we can work through these first two and tell us what the medical examiner determined from that examination of Miss Taylor.
The victim had a gunshot wound to her abdomen and her left upper breast.
All right. Go ahead.
These gunshots did not exit the body.
And let's go to there's one on her left forearm there. See that?
Yes, sir.
Right.
It's a left entry into the forearm, and it exited her upper arm. It went in this area and came out this area.
Okay. All right. And that when the bullet did exit from.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. The first two, that is the ones in the torso, those bullets remained and were found by the medical examiner and the detectives who were present at the autopsy.
Yes, sir.
Why is that important that the medical examiner permit law enforcement in an autopsy to recover bullets from the body? Why is that important?
It helps establish the chain of command that came directly from the victim to the medical examiner, and then the detective recovers them directly from the victim.
All right, and what kind of forensic work can be done on bullets? We're going to be talking about some of that, but explain a little bit briefly.
Yes, sir.
Why that's important.
Firearms examiners can examine the projectile and see if it came from a particular weapon.
And how do they do that briefly, but not get too complicated?
To be the most simple terms I can, I apologize if I'm a little remedial for some of you. If I was to fire a Glock 22 .40 caliber weapon here today, obviously the projectile would go out through the weapon. It would be marked with lands and grooves. The casing would be ejected. It would also be marked. The firearms examiner then does a comparison to those ballistics by doing test firing from like or similar ammunition, and then compares the test fires to the actual rounds.
So the lands and grooves that are found on an expended bullet and on a casing, are those marks for the most part unique?
Yes, sir.
And is it because of their uniqueness that they can attribute those bullets and casings to an actual gun that was used to fire?
That's correct.
And we're going to be talking about something.
Yes, sir.
Here. All right. So let's go to the next wound that we have. Can we? No, that's all right. Thank you. I'm sorry. And let's talk about some of the wounds that are on the chart in the lower extremities of Miss Taylor's body.
She had a wound to her left lower thigh that exited actually her left rear upper thigh or side of her thigh. She also had a through and through, what I call through and through shot, a shot that went through her right foot and exited. And she also had a projectile that was found in the heel of her right foot.
Okay, all right. Did the medical examiner determine the cause of death for this young woman?
Yes, sir.
And what was that?
It was the wound here to the left upper breast.
Did he indicate the trajectory or the manner in which it entered and left in the body, the direction?
Yes, sir. It entered the body in this area and took us downward direction from there.
All right. Did it injure or cause injuries to her lungs, and did they ultimately cause her death?
Injury to her lungs, also ruptured an artery that caused some severe bleeding.
Thank you. Our next exhibit, who is John Mattingly? They've heard his name, just to refresh everybody. Who was he, a detective?
John Mattingly is the detective sergeant from Louisville Police Department that was also shot at this crime scene.
And we've heard evidence you're familiar with. He was shot at the scene.
Yes, sir.
All right. And what is this we have here at 65 for the record? Thank you. 65 for the record.
Yes, sir.
And what is 65? Orient us here for a minute. Is this a wound locator chart?
Yes, sir. This is a wound locator.
Was this done by Dr. Schmock?
Yes, sir.
You're familiar with Dr. Schmock?
Yes, sir.
I've
worked with Dr. Schmock many times over the years.
He's the preeminent wound, forensic wound doctor in Louisville, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Or really in the Commonwealth?
Right.
All right. Now, do we have wounds indicated here that Mr. Mattingly suffered based on the forensic work of Dr. Schmock?
Yes, sir. Mr. Sergeant Mattingly had a wound that entered his left upper thigh to the front and exited the rear left upper thigh.
All right. And that was the only, was there any other injuries? That was it?
That was the only injury.
All right. Now, you had talked about, we talked briefly, and that's why I asked you questions on it. You said very briefly that casings can be used to determine through a forensic exam what gun they were fired from.
Yes, sir.
All right. Let's take a moment here, because and you help me and the jury talk a little bit about what you mentioned the term Glock. Is Glock a 9mm?
In this particular case, it was a 40 caliber. 40 caliber Glock 22 was the mark.
And are casings ejected from a firearm?
Yes, sir.
Explain what you mean to the jury. You're familiar with this kind of firearm?
Sir. Typically, if you're firing a firearm, if you're firing it, they will eject to your right, and they will pop out to the right, depending on what's beside you, if it's grass, if it's concrete, how far they travel, and what they go. But typically, they'll eject to the right side of the weapon.
And then what a live round then moves up into the chamber?
That's right. Once the round is ejected, the next round comes into the chamber until the weapon is empty, and then it'll lock back at what point it's empty.
Now, do police officers commonly, and certainly in Louisville, use a 9mm Glock as their service weapon?
Yes, sir. The Glock 40 is the weapon that the Louisville Police Department, all the officers were carrying.
And we've talked about John Mattingly. We've also heard about Brett Hankinson at the scene.
Yes, sir.
And Miles Cosgrove. Were they all using Glock 9mm weapons on the night of Breonna's death?
They were using the Glock 40.
The Glock 40. I keep saying. I'm sorry. All right.
40 caliber.
But that Glock ejects the casings.
Yes.
All right. And in preparation for your testimony, you and I went over the photos of that.
Yes,
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Because at the scene photo, there's a number of casings.
Right.
And were those casings examined forensically to determine the source of the firing of those bullets?
Yes, sir. They were sent to the state police lab for analysis.
All right. And in preparation, you and I have been looking with other prosecutors at the photos that will help the jury see where these casings were located. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Let me go to my next series here. 66. All right. Now let's get us oriented here for just a moment. Let's wait one moment here. I may have you do a little walking around here for a second. All right. Detective Wolf, come you come over here. You might be able to using these. Can you kind of orient the jury? Sure. We're going to be looking at.
If I get away, I'll hold something. I'll try to get up. This is the front apartment window where gunshots were in. These markings that you see here that were initially marked by the Louisville Police Department evidence collection, it was determined these were already at the scene. They had no bearing on this site. There were some old casings. They were marked initially.
And we're going to be looking at some photos. In fact, Reba's already put one up, kind of orient them with where these projectiles are with either photo that helps you.
The projectiles are the casings you'll be seeing. The first casings are here. This is the parking lot. They're in the area of these cars.
All right. Great. All right, let's go up here and look at what we got. Now, I'm gonna make it simple.
If you look at this, this is the area here where the casings were.
All right. Now, I'm gonna make it simple. Were all the casings that you and I are going to be talking to the jury about this morning, were they all forensically examined?
Yes, sir.
By the Kentucky State Police ballistics expert?
Yes, sir.
All right. And was the Kentucky State Police ballistics expert able to identify, in each instance, a casing and where the source of the firearm was?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, we're looking at some casings you're telling the jury is out in the parking lot away from the apartment. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Are these casings that were determined by the forensic ballistic exam to be Brett Hankinson's?
Yes, sir.
All right.
And there again, these here are the casings I mentioned earlier that are not relevant to this scene. They were in the parking lot or in the mulch from an earlier incident. I think somebody mentioned something about maybe New Year's Eve somebody shot off a gun.
All right. Those are irrelevant and determined to be unconnected.
These are the casings we're considering.
Okay. That's 66.
Yes, sir.
Can we look at 60? Which ones are there? You got 1, 2.
1, 2, 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I believe 9 is behind the tire. And these are just, if you look at these, here's the back of this pickup truck. The first group of casings are here, and then you come over here to the right slightly. If you're facing the apartment, is where the second set of casings are.
All right.
Yes,
60.
sir.
Are we at 9?
10 casings were recovered. Yes, sir.
Thank you for the question. Raise your hand if anytime you got a question. Okay, we're on 60. Let's go to 68. If we could. All right.
There again, this is the casings, and this is the sliding glass door that you'll see was shots were fired through, and this is the window that you'll see shots are fired through.
All of these casings we see around these vehicles you pointed out to the jury, I got to
Yes,
get out of the shadow.
There you go, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, if you can just see there, and 10.
They were all casings from a firearm that was determined to belong to Brett Hankinson. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now I want to go to, get 60, let's go to 69 real quick. I think you've already counted these, but let's see. Yes, ma'am, you already cleared up? 68, I'm sorry. These are all just other photographs of
Yes,
the
sir.
casings located.
Just another picture of the casings.
Now, when there is a crime scene, is it common for detectives like yourself and other agents with law enforcement to work a scene
Yes, sir.
and to collect evidence?
Yes, sir.
Is part of that collection, is it common for them to collect casings and bullets and any other paraphernalia that looks to them to be connected to the crime?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, so we've got, all of these are Brett Hankinson.
Yes, sir.
All right. Yes, please.
I'm assuming these vehicles were there at the time of the shot.
Yes, this is.
They weren't moved, right?
No, these were the pictures actually at the crime scene by the Louisville police detectives.
Thank you. Now, you had pointed out, I think a moment ago, about the sliding door over here.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Al. Let's show them, because we're going to show a couple of photos of this window.
Here again, he's in this parking lot. Right here is the sliding glass door that 5 shots were fired through, and then the window that 5 shots.
Is that Breonna's sister's bedroom there?
Yes, sir.
This goes into the
Living
room. Okay. Now, I asked you that because I want to show the jury Exhibit 70. Detective, what is that? Explain that to the jury. Why
This
these
is the
marks?
screen door that is on the outside of, you can see the shattered sliding glass door, and this is marking the 5 holes in the screen where the projectile went through the screen door.
Based on the trajectory, those are Hankinson's shots,
Yes,
as far as we know.
Yes.
All right, what about 71?
There again, that's a close-up of the same screen door on the outside of the shattered. You can see the shattered sliding glass door. You know, that's a good question. I can't.
I'll say straight.
It looks like just a typical screen door to me that you.
I mean, this was behind it.
Oh, that's just the room. You see there was some blinds that you'll see when you see some pictures inside.
And curtain, too.
Yeah.
Yes. And what we have marked there, the actual bullet holes
Right.
from the bullets flying through that part of the apartment.
Yes.
All right. Yes, man. Yes, sir.
Yeah, those bullets, are those the ones that went into apartment 3?
We're going to show you some trajectories. Good question. You'll hang on a moment. We're going to be able to show you. We're going to talk about the trajectory of forensic work that's done. So hold that. I can hold that for a moment. You're right on target, I think. All right. I'll probably had a window. Wait a minute. Yeah, go ahead.
Shoot from behind the window.
You know, it's okay. There again, all we know is where the shell casings were. Typically, like I said, you guys fire.
Okay. Thanks.
crime sheet,
Yeah.
typically they will be somewhere right in this area. So you can see two kind of piles. Obviously, there was a lot going on. There's potential. I think you'll see that in some of these other pictures. The first thing that gets kicked and moved and picked up and moved is shell casings. They're easy to get knocked around, but in general, to your point.
What are we looking at here?
This is the second window that
What exhibit number is that? Yes, got to introduce to Jeff.
and you see the shots through the window that is.
That's the window in Breonna's sister's bedroom.
Yes, sir.
How many bullets went through there?
5.
All right. Cosgrove's next.
That was exhibit 22.
Thank you. Let's go to exhibit 72. First of all, tell where are we here on this this scene here?
We were looking into goes into where the apartment here is Miss Taylor's apartment. This is apartment 3. This is where the officers were staging to enter the apartment and where Cosgrove and Madeline's shell cases were located.
All right. And these markers here, what do they represent? I think you just said a moment ago. What are we going to see here?
These are mostly shell casings. There's some other things in here, but I think the on this is the shell casings from Detective Cosgrove and Detective Sergeant Maddie. A couple of other things marked in there you'll be able to see when we get up close.
All right. May get a closer one here. Let's go with 73, see what that helps us out. Is it the same foyer we're looking at, just a different portion of that breezeway?
Yes, and you can see here is the ram, whatever you call it. They use to make entry to the door, and it's basically just 223, 29, 28.
So let's point out for the jury some of the casings here that are numbered. If you can you read them all right? For instance, 19.
19 is Detective has been identified as coming. There again, these casings were sent to the Kentucky State Police Lab for examination and comparison with the officers' guns. 19 came back as matching Detective Cosgrove's weapon.
All right.
20, which is right here, again, Detective Cosgrove. 3, Detective Cosgrove. 24, 25, 28, 29, 30.
There's 29.
29, 28, 30 is Cosgrove. 31. 32, 33 is the phone. 34, 35.
How many shell casings from Cosgrove was there recovered from the scene by the police?
16.
All right. Now, kind of orient them. That's in the breezeway, and
Yes.
what What apartments are those two?
I believe this is apartment 3 right here, and then the victim's apartment. There's one more case in Rewa that was just inside the door, but I don't think it is.
27.
There's 27, shall case 27.
How many cases?
He's asked a question.
16.
16?
Yeah, 38. And there's 39 just inside the door.
How many bullets can be fired with a fully loaded magazine and one in the chamber with the type of 9mm that Detective Miles Cosgrove would have had that evening?
A Glock 22/40 caliber will fire 16 rounds till empty. After 16 rounds, it'll lock back empty. You have to reload with another magazine, and you'll have them. He had 16 rounds available.
Pretty much empty what he had.
I'm sorry.
It would have pretty much empty with the...
Yeah, so he basically, it appears, shot his firearm, fully loaded firearm empty.
Question to clarify. All of those that you just read off, they were all Cosgrove?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And will you get to the, can you speak about the distance?
Well, I think we'll show you some projectors ours that will kind of work it off.
So, will it speak to like how far a casing can fly
How far a casing
when
can
shot? Yeah.
I don't know if there's any scientific evidence to how far a casing will fly. Guys spend a lot of time shooting on the range. That's it. About here to the table, maybe. And again, it depends on a lot of factors.
So do you feel that the distance that these were as far as like out towards the sidewalk, that would be an appropriate distance for him to be standing in front of the doorway?
Probably does, but you've got to realize that. Ask me again. Probably since everybody. Yeah, there's a possibility. Right. I understand after this happened, you had medical people, you had other officers coming, it was a chaotic situation. So to say this is the final arresting of all these cases that they could have been kicked or knocked or picked up is.
Not necessarily where they fell.
Right.
I
Okay,
didn't
thank
introduce
you.
this. For the record, our exhibit 70 through 84 were Cosgrove's bullets. Cases, right?
An approximation. Fired them, all those things being in a similar.
Who was shooting?
Cosgrove.
Cosgrove?
No, since we're only speaking about these that we've found so far. Does it seem like or was he moving a lot, or there's no way of telling exactly? I realize that, but it just seems like too much, or is he just thinking?
I believe what happened, and it's there again, it's just based on what the statements I've heard. I believe after Detective Madden gets hit, he's kind of the first guy in Cosgrove's behind him, so I think he kind of moved up to put cover on Madden. So I think he did move. I think he did when he moved inside. It's probably where you get the case in 39. So a police officer trained to try to get cover, try to be behind something when you're shooting. That's a natural instinct for a police officer. So when you go through that door, you don't have any cover. So as soon as Madeline went down pretty much in that area, he's trying to cover his fallen officer.
So it would seem 39, would you have had to cross the threshold?
I believe that's possible. There again, that's, we're dealing with the fact
Let's
that.
just say the casing goes off to the right.
Right. But, you know, there again, there's factors involved in it where officers are coming in and out, depending on people are coming in and out. But that would, yes, if you.
And that one is cost price.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and I think I stepped on his question, but his was Exhibit 73 through 84. Those are the photos that detectives will identify the 16 casings that were, the forensic exam said they were fired by Cosgrove's 9mm. Is that right, Detective?
Yes, sir. It's 40 caliber.
We're going to go to Mattingly. Let's go to, wait a minute. We got his, I had Manning case right here. That's Cosgrove. What numbers are Matt? Yeah. Okay, we got 76. Okay, all right. We get them off, or we got them off so far.
We got them all so far, just started at 77. So here's the apartment.
We got to do medically, don't we?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
it's 77.
We got him. Okay, we're good. Okay.
No, you don't have him. You haven't talked to him.
I haven't talked to him, but that's
Yeah.
what we need,
Yeah.
77.
Will you find yours?
Here we are. I got it. Okay.
No, for the record. Okay. He was saying yesterday they said they were 9mm. 40 caliber.
Can you repeat the question? Yesterday, Lakefield said that the approved weapons for LMPD officers are Glock 9mm models 17, 19, 45, and 34. Is a 9mm the same as you keep referring to a Glock, a 40 caliber?
No, it's a different.
Is it
Different, yes, different caliber.
So then they were not using,
I think you may be confusing off-duty with.
Can I ask a question again? Well, yesterday, Detective Lacefield from the weapons training had stated that the approved weapons for LMPD officers are Glock 9mm. This is all he mentioned was a Glock 9mm. Off-duty weapons, they could all 9mm. The approved weapons were all Glock 9mm.
I'm not sure. I didn't hear his testimony. So what's the question?
My question was, what's the difference? The initial question was, is a Glock 9 the same as a 40 caliber? Are the 9mm and the 40 caliber the same thing? Is a different size bullet?
Yes, sir.
my follow-up question is, were they using
Was your question, what is an authorized firearm for a police officer with LMPD?
Yeah, we were told by the weapons trainer yesterday, in the recorded statement, that the weapons were 9mm handguns. And now we're hearing that the bullets fired were 40 caliber bullets, so that doesn't match
try to get an answer for that.
So are these officers using unapproved weapons?
And unapproved. We'll get an answer for it. You don't know the answer to that?
No.
Okay. They're asking whether they had approved or unapproved firearms on the night of the shooting. We'll find out.
And he did say that all the shell casings were from the 40. They're all from a 40 caliber gun?
Yes, but there were 3
Right.
separate firearms that were fired that night. All right.
Thank you.
Let's go to Madden. It's 77.
Here's the end of the casings from Detective Mattingly.
And which were his casings?
26, 27, 28, 30, and 31.
And this is out in the breezeway.
Yes.
And where approximately, if you can tell by looking at the photo, was Breonna's apartment that night? Approximately.
I believe here is the door to her apartment.
Okay. All right. Now, where is apartment 3?
Right here in this location.
Okay. And why is apartment 3 concerned to this particular investigation?
That is where the projectiles went through the wall of the apartment 4 and into apartment 3.
There were people living in apartment 3.
Yes.
Did that include a mother and a father and a child?
Yes.
And were they present in that apartment the night these shootings occurred?
Yes.
And I want to put up 78, if I could. What is that photo of?
This is apartment 3.
All right. And that's the apartment we're talking about.
Right.
And that's the apartment some bullets entered that apartment that night. Is that right?
Yes.
Now let's go to 79 inside. What's going on here, Detective?
This is the wall in apartment 3 where you can see the projectiles came through the wall.
Are 2 of those?
You can see one there, and then you can barely see this one at the.
There's 3 bullets, at least on this photo, that entered that apartment.
Right.
And is this apartment, does it back into Breonna's apartment? Just pretty much the mirror image
Yes.
of it.
You look at this backs up to her dining room.
All right. 70, 80. Let's look at that. Is 80 the one that you were showing the jury a moment ago that's behind that chair?
Yes, that's what you can see behind the chair.
Let's go to 81. What's that?
That is a projectile located on the kitchen table.
Is this in apartment 3?
Yes.
All right. Was that recovered?
Yes.
All right. And was it forensic work done on that bullet?
Yes, sir.
And did that forensic work determine who shot that bullet? Went through the wall and landed on the table?
Yes, sir, it did.
And who fired that bullet that night?
Detective Hankinson.
All right. Can we go to 82?
Yes.
Whose sliding glass door is that?
That's the sliding glass door in apartment 3.
All right. These are the folks that live in the apartment right next to Breonna.
Yes, sir.
appear that got all shot up too that night.
Yes, sir.
83.
That's the projectile located on the floor, same in the glass from the door.
All right. Was that forensically examined by the Kentucky State Police ballistic experts?
Yes, sir, it was.
Were they able from that forensic exam of that bullet to determine who fired that bullet that went through the apartment 3 and landed on the floor?
Yes, sir.
Who did that?
Detective Atkinson.
All right, okay. Make sure I got it. 1 second here. Wait, I just got one quick. Let me check with Rila real quick. I don't have 84.
About to go. Wait, you can get it.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it should be 85. All right. Wait a minute. You're saying 84. Now we've talked to ladies and gentlemen jury here about several bullets and bullet holes that were located inside apartment 3. There were a number of bullets recovered in and around this scene of the shooting that night. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And a number of them, all of them, were forensically examined to see if they could determine who the origin of those firearms. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. And so when you're going to be telling the jury who fired it, it's based on the reported forensic exam by ballistic experts. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right. And so let's go to number 85. All right. And I think jury's seen this before, but just for the record, if you'll orient, where are we in Breonna's apartment there?
This is the hallway apartment. You can see.
All right. There's some markers there, is that right?
Yes, sir.
42 is one of them, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. And it's kind of hard to see, but there's a bullet there, is that correct?
Yes, sir. That's a bullet.
All right. And was that bullet forensically examined?
Yes, sir.
And whose bullet was that? Who fired that, rather?
It came from Detective Cosgrove's.
All right. There's a marker 43 not right next to Breonna's body lying down there. And do you recall what that is? That
is a phone.
All right. That's her cell phone?
Yes, sir.
All right. And then 41, can you see that?
Yes.
Shine that. What is that?
That is a casing.
All right. And were the ballistics examiners, were they able to determine the origin of that casing? What gun fired that left that casing there on the floor?
It is a Glock 43X.
All right. And who was using that gun that night?
It's my understanding Kenneth Walker's. That was Kenneth Walker's weapon.
All right. So that casing came from that firearm?
Yes, sir.
All right. And they recovered Mr. Walker, the gun Mr. Walker had used that night. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And did forensic exam work on it, just like we've been talking about.
Yes, sir.
All right. All right. 86. All right. Where are we? We're still in Breonna's apartment here, are we not?
Yes.
Okay. And were there bullets that were recovered by the police department examining this apartment that night?
Yes.
All right. And we actually have there's holes, bullet holes in these cabinets here, aren't there?
Yes, sir.
All right. Were there bullets recovered from that?
Yes, sir.
All right. And Just to orient the jury here, look, go back just 1 second. I apologize. Did you already shine these two entries there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's go to 45, and if we could, next. It is 45. 40, wait a minute. Yes, 40, let's go to the next one. It'll be 47. Got it. All right, okay. Wait a minute, that's the marker number. 87. Can we go to 87? I'm sorry. And what is that we're looking at?
That is marker 45.
All right, and what is that?
That's a projectile.
All right. Did they attempt to match that?
Yes.
They have any success?
No, they didn't.
All right. Now that one, can we go back for just a moment? See that rod there and what that is? Can we go back to 86 for a moment? Thank you. And that pan, did it come from this particular cabinet here on the left at the bottom there?
Yes.
Where you see the rod. Thank you. Can we go to 88 for a moment? Thank you. All right. Did they recover a bullet in that area of that stove in Breonna's kitchen?
Yes, sir.
And whereabouts is that? Can you show the jury? There you go.
There.
All right.
Here's the stuff.
All right. And 46, was that examined by the ballistics experts at the Kentucky State Police Lab?
Yes.
Were they able to make any determination of what gun fired that bullet that landed there next to the stove?
No, sir. It was inconclusive.
All right. Yes, questions?
Could they at least tell the caliber?
Please.
Could they at least tell the caliber?
Yeah. Did you hear the question, Detective? He's asking, did we know the caliber? We're going to check.
Let's go 45 influence.
Yes, good question. It may take a moment. There are quite a bit of items that were examined for ballistic exams. So just give us 1 second. We're going to get an answer.
I got a follow-up question. We can talk about that.
Unless you get your questions. Alex, can we flip the light on for a second? Just 1 second. I know it's in there.
They were all identified as .40 caliber. And when I say inconclusive, actually what they're saying is they could have came from any of the officers' weapons. Manual, Coxborough.
I apologize, I didn't bring that point up. When we say they didn't match it, it doesn't necessarily mean there's some outlier that shot that in. They know it came from one of the three, either Miles Coxborough, John Mattingly, or Brett Hankinson. There was insufficient detail on the bullet for them to conclude which of the three. And go back, because they're looking at what striations and
yes,
marks, and there has to be a sufficient number of identical marks for it to say, yes, that came from Miles Cosgrove's gun. If they don't, then they call it an inconclusive. And so I may be using some loose terms saying they weren't able to match that up. Well, they weren't, but they know it came from one of those three firearms. The only one different was the one you saw in the hallway that Casey came from. All right.
I think you just answered it. I was going to see if that ruled out their weapons, but it doesn't sound like that.
You answered the question before you asked it.
Well done.
Good. But if you haven't, please continue to ask. That's what you all are here for. All right. Now, when you were showing the jury the outside of this window, you recall that belonged to Breonna's sister's bedroom?
Yes, sir.
We even pointed out bullet holes in the screen adjacent to that window before it got blown out. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Did we recover, and I'm looking at Exhibit 89. Now, that's what I'm up to now? Yes, 89.
Yes, sir.
Were there bullets located in the sister's bedroom?
Yes, sir.
All right. Is that marker 47, is that where one of the bullets was located?
Yes, sir.
Was it in her dresser drawer?
Yes, sir.
All right. And can I go to number 90? Photograph number 90? Yes. Yes, okay, yes. Thank you. When I'm going to go back real quick to 47. Was that a projectile or bullet, I'm calling it, that was located?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And did they examine it? And if they examined it, were they able to distinguish whether it was Cosgrove, Mattingly, or Hankinson that fired that bullet?
They did examine it, and they were not able to distinguish.
Okay. There it was. I'm sorry, I stepped on your.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just said who fired it.
Was there a second bullet found in the sister's bedroom?
Yes, sir.
Was it in the closet of her bedroom?
Yes, sir.
All right. Is 48 a marker that was used to identify the location of that bullet when the police found it?
Yes, sir.
All right. And was that bullet taken down to the KSP lab and examined it to see if they could determine the source, who shot that bullet into her bedroom?
Yes, sir. It was indistinguishable. They could not tell which officer had fired that.
No. Same thing. It was one. We know it came from one of those three guns, but we couldn't tell which of the three.
Yes, sir.
All right. '91. Shoebox.
Yes, sir.
Is there a hole in that? A bullet, what appears to be a bullet hole?
Yes, sir.
Did they locate a projectile in there?
They did.
And that shoebox is, what does that appear from looking at the photo, where that is located?
It's in the victim's closet.
When you're talking about division, we're talking about Breonna's.
Yes.
All right.
Oh, I'm sorry. She's ahead of me. Right.
And were they able to match that bullet with any of the three firearms used by the three detectives?
No, sir. There again, it could have came from any of their weapons, but they were not able to distinguish which one.
Yes, we got a question.
It was located in the closet, but I believe they took it out when they photographed it and put it on. If you see here, here's a closet, here's a...
Good question, though. I appreciate it. It was originally in the closet. Is that clear? Is that clear your question? Originally in the closet. Thank you for the question. Let's go to 92. Could we do that for a moment? And then we may want to flip back and forth. All right. Explain to the jury what we're looking at there.
That's in the closet where the shoebox was located.
Is that a bullet hole they've marked?
Yes, sir.
Is that where that shoebox was before it was
Yes, sir.
moved and examined by the police?
Yes, sir, that's my
All
understanding.
right, thank you, Ruth. Yes, ma'am.
So,
Please.
where that shoebox was in the closet with those other
Yes.
shoes? Spin it around. Put it back to the closet. Where the shoeboxes were.
Can we go back and look at that closet that Bree was showing us in there? See what it shows.
There you go.
To answer your question,
So the bottom of the shoebox then was turned, the bullet, the shoebox on the washing machine was turned facing down wall, so the bullet came from through that wall.
yes, ma'am.
Not from.
I might answer. I should be answering. Let the detective.
Put our-
Did you hear her question?
Yes. She's going to put the trajectory report up, which I think is helpful to kind of take a look at these.
Marie was getting at trajectory. Tell them a little bit about what is this?
This is
And who did this work for us? Yes, when we got
Before you
questions.
get on it, can you go back to that picture?
Yes. You talking about the shoebox?
Yeah, it's right there with the door. So is the other, I see where the hole where the one bullet, is that another one that's right next to it?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, that did.
If you look at the wall on the other side,
Did that answer your question, ma'am?
here's the,
We're going to. Now, this is a different exhibit. I think we may have seen some of the other day with Barbara. Tell the lady, General Jury, what is it that all these lines and marks and what is this exhibit we're looking at now, and how does it help us?
this was prepared by the FBI when they went in as a trajectory report, and basically it just shows you they take the holes and the bullets and where they're able to match up things and get an idea of where they came from, and then go back and show what direction these rounds came from. You can see these rounds here that we talked about earlier come in the direction of where Detective Hankinson's casings were found, as well as these that go through. And then these rounds here come in the direction of where Detective Cosgrove and Madeline were at.
Now, not every fired shot could we get a trajectory on. Is that correct?
Yes, sometimes depending on what the hole, what it was, they can't establish it's not a clean enough hole or clean enough to do a trajectory, so they can't do every one, but these are the ones. And to me, this kind of makes me shake my head and get an understanding of what was going on.
For instance, if you don't have a hole or an exit from which a bullet can be located, can they do a trajectory?
It depends on it. No, they can't. If they can't, if they find a bullet that was laying in the floor, which happened a couple times in this, they can't. But like the good indications here, where you have a screen door that had 5 shots in it, or 5 shots, and then you have a wall over here, it's easy to then come up with trajectories. The more points you have that you can use.
What's on the other side of this wall up
There
here?
again, that's apartment 3.
All right.
The pictures we showed you earlier of the other side.
To help you all seeing some of the trajectory we make, he had shown them to you earlier to kind of show you where Hankinson was firing shots outside of the apartment. And if you could show the one up in the bathroom, we're getting ready to show that to them. That appears to go through the sister's bedroom, doesn't it?
Yes.
Now, that takes us right to 92, which is a bullet the police found that time.
Yes.
And where is this bullet located at? We can kind of see it's a bathroom.
It's there in the front, there again, the front bathroom, what I call the front bathroom. There was two, one for the through it. You looked at the trajectory report, and then came the rest.
All right, good. I was
This-
just
this
getting ready to ask her to do that. Show them what bathroom that is where that bullet came.
This one here.
All right. And this, there's two bathrooms. The one on the right, is that the one that off of Breonna's
Yes,
bed?
that's off of what you call the master, what they call the master bedroom, and this was the.
That's one I
front
call
bathroom.
the sister's bedroom, I call it. All right. Now, we've got a bullet in what looks like the soap tray of that bathroom, the sister's bathroom. Was that taken to the Kentucky State Police lab to determine if they could identify who fired that bullet that night that landed in that bathroom?
Yes, sir. That was determined to come from Detective Hankinson's weapon.
All right. Thank you. Was there a furnace in the hallway of Breonna's apartment?
Yes, sir. Right there.
All right. And was there a bullet recovered from that furnace by the police?
Yes, sir.
All right. That's 93. Thank you, Rick. And as I've asked you before, was that bullet marked on the photo as Exhibit 93?
Yes,
Was
sir.
that also examined by the forensic expert at the Kentucky State Police lab?
Yes, sir.
Was he able to identify who fired that bullet that went into the furnace?
Yes, sir. Detective Hankinson.
All right. I want to hold on that just a moment. All right. Now, you had mentioned that the FBI did some of their own forensic exam inside the apartment.
Yes, sir.
Was that in approximately June of this year?
Yes, sir. They came back and conducted another search warrant and collected some additional projectiles.
So did they dig into the walls and pull out some bullets that had not heretofore been recovered by the police?
Yes, sir.
All right. So I'm going to go through a few of these, and two of them are fairly important, aren't they?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, these are bullets that were found. Just a moment. All right, we're going to go through some. You have your FBI results here.
Yes, sir.
Now, these are bullets that were recovered by the FBI, and the bullets that they recovered, did they examine those bullets forensically?
Yes, sir.
All right. Were we, by reviewing the FBI report, were you, detective, able to specifically determine, what wall, exactly in the wall where a bullet may have been recovered, or just the general room?
Just the general room. I was not there for that particular search.
Okay. But in one instance, we do have the bullet holes. We're going to talk to the jury about that in a minute. All right, for instance, we have A in dining room. That's room A.
Yes, sir.
And was a bullet recovered in the wall of that dining room?
Yes, sir.
All right. And was that examined forensically to see if they could determine the origin, who shot it?
Yes, sir. The FBI forensic examiner was able to determine that that came from Detective Hankinson's.
All right. And then they also recovered one from the Breonna's room. That's H.
Yes, sir.
All right. And the wall right in there.
Yes, sir.
All right. And were they able to determine that instance the source of that bullet that was embedded in her wall?
Yes, sir.
Side wall. Who was that?
Detective Hankinson.
All right. And another one. Was there not a second one also embedded in that wall?
Yes, sir.
Of her bedroom?
Yes, sir.
And what did the forensic say the origin of that bullet?
Detective Hankinson's weapon.
All right. There was also a bullet recovered from the living room, from the wall in the living room.
Yes,
Is that in that general area?
Yes, sir.
All right. And who was the source of that bullet that went into that was embedded in the wall of the living room?
Detective Mattingly.
All right. They found one that was in the hallway. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right. '94. Can I put that up? Okay, 94 is up there. Is 90 under 94? Does that contain a bullet that's in the hallway?
Yes, sir.
All right. There's 3 of them.
Yes, sir.
And did the FBI able to recover 2 of those 3 from the holes?
Yes, sir.
All right. And were they able to determine who the source was?
Yes, sir. One was from Detective Mattingly.
All right. And was there any other material on that bullet that was forensically examined?
They were able to recover DNA off of that projectile that they could say was a female DNA.
Did it have blood or some other biological substance on the bullet?
Yes, sir. I assume so.
All right. And while we're here on that, was there a second bullet recovered by the FBI from that wall that we're looking at?
Yes, sir. A second projectile was recovered from that area. It also had female DNA.
All right. And who was the source of that gun?
Detective Cosgrove.
All right. Yes.
This wall is the closet.
No, ma'am. This wall is right here behind where the victim was laying.
Right, back into the
Oh,
closet.
yes. Yeah, I'm sorry. You're right.
So it's one of those, so neither of those shots is the shot that went through the wall into the shoebox, right?
No, it was the bullet was recovered. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be testifying. She's asking you if any of
No,
those
these 2 projectiles that were recovered were coming from that wall.
Okay.
I apologize for stepping on your answer, your question, rather.
The DNA on both of those projectiles was the same female DNA. They could say it was the same female. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
One was, explain to him, but one was each one, because I think I kind of stepped on his answer here.
One was from Detective Cosgrove's weapon, and one was from Detective Mattingly's weapon.
I also have it on hallway D. Did they recover another bullet down there? Not one of the 2 we just talked about.
Yes, sir.
And were they able to determine the source of that one?
There was Detective Cosgrove.
All right. And another one in the hallway they dug out of the wall. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Detective Cosgrove.
All right. Okay. And 2 more. Okay. I got everything but the living room?
Yeah.
Okay. And was there another one from the living room wall that there was a bullet was embedded in there?
Yes, sir.
All right.
And that was Detective Cosgrove's.
Okay.
weapon.
All right. No, haven't
Okay.
touched that.
Okay.
We talked about the bullets being recovered. But we haven't talked about what they did on it. Now, I want to go back some if I could, okay?
Yes, sir.
When we first started this morning with jurors, you talked about the autopsy.
Yes, sir.
You remember that?
Yes, sir.
And you talked about the fact that there were bullets that were recovered from Breonna's body during the autopsy.
Yes, sir.
And there were 3 of them, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Was one of them embedded in the heel of her, I believe, right foot?
Yes, sir.
That was recovered, right?
Yes, sir.
But that was never identified.
No, it was not identified specifically as one of the officer's weapons.
Now, there were 2 other bullets recovered.
Yes, sir.
All right. And one of those 2 bullets caused her death. That was the one in the upper right.
Yes, sir.
Through her lungs, you said, and part
Yes,
of her artery. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right. And they were recovered. Were they examined by the Kentucky State Police, those 2 bullets?
They were.
All right. And when Kentucky State Police did an exam, was the purpose of that exam to determine if they could who the source of those 2 bullets into her torso?
Yes, sir.
All right. And do they do that through an examination of striations made from the bullets they recovered from her body, along with test sample bullets that they took at the lab?
Yes, sir.
From each of the 3 firearms used by the policemen?
Yes, sir.
All right. And in doing so, are they attempting to match up, for lack of a better term, striations and other unique marks on the bullet that was recovered from Breonna to the same kinds of markings that may be present on the test bullets from the 3 policemen?
Yes, sir.
All right. And that's a common technique in forensic work.
Yes,
That's been around for 100 years.
Yes, sir.
All right. And they do that with equipment like high intensity magnifying equipment
Yes, sir.
that expands, considerably the ability for them to examine these small and unique marks on bullets.
Yes, sir.
Now, those unique marks are made by various manufacturing paraphernalia inside the barrel.
Yes.
And and over time, other marks will come from the use of the gun.
Yes, sir.
All of which are considered by the forensic scientists to be unique
Yes, sir.
and capable, if used with a qualified expert, to match bullets with guns.
Yes, sir.
All right. And the KSP, Stephen Hughes, the forensic expert at our lab here in Frankfurt, did he examine those 2 bullets and attempt to see which of these 3 policemen may have fired those 2 bullets into Breonna that caused her death?
Yes, sir, he did.
And what was his determination?
He could not distinguish between the 3 officers' weapons which one had fired those projectiles.
And I've used the term forensic because they are important forensic exams, ballistic
Yes.
work, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Is there a fair amount of subjectivity that necessarily is present in such an exam?
Yes, sir.
It's not like DNA.
No, sir.
All right. It's important, though, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
But it doesn't have the same scientific certainty that DNA does.
That's correct.
All right. Now, later on, we've been talking about the FBI. They came out and worked on the scene as well.
Yes, sir.
Cooperated in other aspects of the investigation with you guys.
Yes, sir.
All right. And did they decide to take a look at these 2 bullets?
Yes, sir, they
There's 3
did.
altogether, but let's concentrate on the 2.
Yes, sir, they
And the
did.
2 bullets I'm talking about are the one that caused her death in the upper left side of her chest, went down her lung, and the one right in here at her abdomen that you talked to the jury about
Yes,
a
sir.
little while ago. All right. And they had the same kinds of tools I've talked about kind of generally.
Yes, sir. I believe they had the exact same type of microscope.
All right. And examiner equally qualified, the same as as Stephen Hughes at
Yes,
our
sir.
lab.
Yes, sir. FBI examiner.
All right. And we talked to that examiner at the FBI and the examiners at KSP.
Yes,
about
sir.
their findings. The FBI had a different result. Tell the jury what was their finding.
The FBI examiner he was able to say that Detective Cosgrove fired the 2 rounds.
Including the one that the medical examiner said caused her death.
That's correct.
Doing so, he looked and found, in his opinion, sufficient detail in bullets recovered from her body to the test bullets he used for comparison purposes from the 3 policemen's gun, right?
Yes.
In examining those, it was his judgment that they were fired by Costco, the 2 bullets in the torso.
Correct.
So to sum up, we don't necessarily have a conflict. We have the Kentucky State Police forensic examiner who's well qualified, right?
Yes.
You've worked with him, all of us have one time or another.
I'm not sure I've worked with him, but he's.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
But essentially, he found there was inconclusive amount of similarity for him to make a call, there's a match.
That's correct.
That's his subjective judgment, where some subjectivity enters into it.
Yes.
Some examiners are at times more aggressive than others in their attempts to match up bullets and guns. And using the same or similar equipment, the FBI person, their examiner, found that there was sufficient detail in his opinion to say Miles Cosgrove fired the 2 bullets, one of which killed Breonna.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
All right. I'm going to check with my colleagues here to make sure I haven't left anything out. Have I? I did? Oh, okay. We're going to, these are our trajectories that have been used several times, and they're marked 95 and 6. And therefore, you're on examination, and any questions you might have while we still have it. If I check with my boss here. That's all I have, but we're here for any questions you might have of Detective Wolf.
I have a question. There was, we heard testimony that there was a bullet that went through the ceiling of apartment 4 through the apartment 8, I believe, above. Was that bullet recovered?
There was 2 that were not recovered. 2 bullets fired.
Question is on the spray directories that are shown. It's like somebody or lots of people being sprayed from that doorway. In other words, I don't know.
I think that's just the way they marked the different trajectories. See, this area here is the beginning of pretty much all of the trajectories, which is pretty much right.
Or the bullet that are covered.
Bottom of the cover and the trajectory marker is actually going up in the air.
That's a good point. I can explain that.
Does he know?
Where is that cover located in the trajectory?
It's in there was one by the stove and one
Showing us there's two.
Oh, I'm sorry, this is the FBI trajectory, that the mark you saw, Louisville PD did their own, some of their trajectory analysis, we didn't use theirs, we used the FBI.
Would have been in one of those.
For the right listing.
If I'm looking at number 86, it looks to me like it's in this tab here.
Yes, the picture shows, the director shows that it's on the right, but the picture shows it's on the left.
Yeah, right. And there again, there was, Louisville PD had done some trajectory stuff, and then the FBI came back in and did this. Yeah, right there is.
Okay, yeah. Right there it is.
So,
No,
It looks like
no,
that.
there's some.
right, they're gonna show anything.
If you look at these, if you look at these, this one, end up here in the back.
Get up in the back.
Yeah, okay, so this trajectory of court is only ones that they can
Right.
confirm.
That they could identify.
So like the one that was in, like the one we were just referencing, right? That may not have been able to determine where that was coming from.
If you look at that, that's only speculation on my part. When you look at the close-up on it, it's pretty big, pretty rough. Usually the ones they like to use are the pretty light. That's just my speculation.
Lady back here wants a question.
Projectiles that are marked there on that.
Here's some
Just
go.
outside, you go.
These here you're talking about?
No, the ones in the hall, right?
Right there, yes, lighting up.
So that's the majority of the, where the bullets were found.
Right.
Wow, yeah. But there are only two against the wall that went all the way down. What are those little short trajectories there? Goes into the wall.
And I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure. But these here, if you remember, Walker's casing was
So
found right
it's just down a little bit. Before they're grouped together. They have
These right
one
here.
little extra but not to the left.
You made a good point. Some of those where they're marking things like in this hall are where they believe the bullet hit something and then continued on. Yes, sir.
The bullet that he protected randomly that went through?
Yes, sir.
Was everything?
Yes, sir.
It was?
Yes, sir. It was, well, yes, sir. It was out in the hall. I apologize. I probably should have, I thought I made read that earlier. It's exactly what the casings were. I'll show you.
Okay.
Yeah, but the word bullet has.
They were unable to determine. ASP.
They, the scene, it entered
Right, 37. It had blood on it that they were sending to, I believe, to get comparison done on.
Shot, was it the family shot a day?
If you look at the injury to his leg, it went in here, it went pretty much straight through the throat. Yes, sir. So go back to the injury report.
Okay.
Ma'am?
Casing marker 42, when you do the hall markers, the 3 of them right from 2 was there.
There was one that, a bullet that came from Cosgrove's weapon.
Yeah, down toward the end of the hall, there were 3 of them with this casing number.
No, that's the projectile. The casings were all out.
All the casing, there was a
Right,
projectile.
right, the projectile actually
Yeah,
pulled
but
apart.
it was a projectile.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
You said it was a casing, that's why I was.
No, ma'am.
Walker's casing was there.
Walker's
Yeah, Walker's
casing,
casing, but
yes,
it's a
that's
marker
correct.
toward the front, yeah.
Yes.
For the, back hallway, that, the wall that, is on the opposing side of the closet, just to make sure I have it right, one of those was from Mattingly, and 2 of those 3 were from Cosgrove.
No, ma'am, one from me. Yeah, yes, sir.
There are 3 shots, I think it was the other one. Okay.
Also, I've got an answer for you on your 40 caliber, 9 caliber. In March of 2020, the Glock 40 caliber was the official. It's just a little bit bigger. It's pretty popular.
Yeah, I know there was different, it was just.
There was a time period about that time where everybody went from the 40 to the 9. We did the same thing.
Burned 5 shots from Mattingly.
6, we recovered 6. There were 6 casings found.
So 5 in front in the breezeway, and then the 1 in the wall.
Casey was
Casey. Oh, Casey.
Was the other one inside the hallway? The other Casey?
One casing inside the hallway was just inside the door was Cosgrove. Six casings and 2 projectiles.
What kind of gun did Mr. Walker get?
He had a Glock 43X, which is now. Yes, ma'am. It's a good gun.
That's the one bullet that they had in the hallway.
I'm sorry, sir. You said it over
Our
time.
Glock.
No, Magnum.
Magnum had 6 casings and 2 projectiles that we were able to conduct.
Any other questions?
Anything else?
Yes, we got a question.
The door, the front door.
You want to see the front door?
The front door wasn't the door through which Mattingly was hit, or Walker shot? Or was the door open enough to clear?
They had reached the door. The door was open.
The door was already.
When he went in the door.
I got the feeling that the door kind of opened and sort of swung back shut a little bit.
This is the pictures, but they reached the door, which was recent, and then when he went in the doors, he was shot.
Walker said that as soon as that door came on,
Yeah. Maybe when you do this, somebody has to be the first guy through the door. That's, you know, whoever's the first guy through the door is obviously going to be the guy that's in the most danger.
I mean, these photos may not represent exactly what at that moment, where the position of the door.
That's a good point.
Any other questions from the jury?
Going off the record,